and you'll get a sense of a developing group of colleagues. If you've got the section headed Go to Meeting, which will probably be on the right-hand side of your screen. There are 7 of us here currently. Welcome to one and all. I'm Rob Ward from the Centre for Recording Achievement, and this is a CRA hosted webinar. So what I'd encourage colleagues to do just for in the next minute or two is to find the chat window, which is towards the bottom of that column on your screen. On my screen it's on the right-hand side, and just introduce yourselves to us. Ian said hello already from the west of Scotland, and Ruth said hello from JISC. So if you just want to pop something in that box about who you are and your institution and maybe your role in that institution, that would be really helpful, because we have a diverse and eclectic group on the webinar and indeed on this piece of action research as we're going along. I'll give a couple of minutes for people to do that, and then we'll kick off. And in the meantime, I will mute my mic and I'll turn off my webcam for a minute or two. So an introduction in the chat window would be great. Thank you. Okay, that's great. The webcam facility is available in choosing that already. Liz is threatening to use that when she's finished eating salad, and we'll see how that works out. I'll leave mine off for a minute or two if that's okay. Welcome to this webinar. A little bit about housekeeping. We've got my good colleague Kath Houston in the office who will be working the slides, and that's because there are 3 of us making contributions during this meeting, and actually all of us might make contributions during this meeting. So as I've said, I'm Rob Ward from the CRA, and my 2 co-conspirators at this stage, who I hope will introduce themselves now by switching on their audio and just saying a few words, Gronya and Ruth. And Ruth, do you want to go first and just say a bit about your role in all of this, and then Gronya?
Hi, yes, my name's Ruth Drysdale. I'm a co-design manager at JISC, and I've been supporting the HERE for the last 7 or 8 years since I've been at JISC. We've been working closely with CRA and the HEA and several other stakeholders in the environment. As I hope you're aware, JISC have developed the technical spec behind the HERE, and so we see our role as supporting the technical aspects behind the implementation of the HERE. We're aware that things have moved on quite a lot in the HERE community, but also in the technologies available for sharing your credentials online, and we'll talk more about this in a bit, but that's why we would like to see what the appetite is of the sector to do something potentially different with the HERE, or to how to evolve it from the technical point of view. So that's why I'm delighted to be here with Rob and Gronya from Digital Me today and talking to you guys. So over to Gronya.
Hi everyone, thanks Ruth and Rob. I'm Gronya Hamilton. I'm Effective Practice Manager with Digital Me, and we are a digital credentials solution company based in the UK. So Rob and Ruth invited me to contribute to this webinar to talk about digital credentials and look at the possibilities with you of how they could be used to support perhaps wider dissemination and access to the HERE. So I look forward to engaging with discussion with you during the webinar.
Many thanks, Gronya. That's great. Colleagues, we're a relatively small group. There are a number of people who've sent apologies. The community that's expressed interest covers, as far as we're aware, 10 institutions in the UK. So it's great to have some of you here. There will be a recording of this webinar, complete with all the ums and ahs that I'm putting into my bit of it. And you'll be able to access that, and we'll talk a little bit about more about that as we go along. I should just explain the graphic on the slides. If you're interested in aviation, you'll recognize that's a graphic which comes from the first flight by the Wright brothers, and this is a bit like that. This is the first go at something, and I'm hoping we will all learn a lot about how we're going to be able potentially to connect technologies up and to make good use of HERE data to support student progression, because at the end of the day, if it's about anything to HERE, it is about supporting student development and progression, it seems to me. So that's our context. We're still at the first flight stage, and in terms of where we're going, I'm going to do a bit of an introduction. I'm then going to hand on to Gronya. So I'm going to set the scene, not least because not everybody was at the meeting where this was introduced in Manchester. So I'm going to set the scene using some of that material, handing on to Gronya to talk a little bit about the affordances that digital badges might give us in terms of maximising or certainly extending the use of HERE data by our students and our graduates. And Ruth then will talk a little bit about this kind of action research project and how we're going to support each of you that wants to have a go at participating in something that, as far as we're aware, has never been done before. This is a world first, and you are here doing it. Fantastic. So in terms of where we're coming from, then there are some things that we know. We know that students are able to present themselves online by using LinkedIn. Whenever I talk to LinkedIn, the numbers about people using LinkedIn has gone up from the last time I talked to them, and they say that students in the UK are proportionately their biggest user group. So in each of our institutions, my guess is there are students who have LinkedIn profiles, there are students who are developing them, and increasingly there are institutions that are devoting resources to help students build effective LinkedIn profiles, and indeed institutions have LinkedIn profiles, LinkedIn pages themselves, which connect them to their alumni and help students connect to alumni. So there's an existing range of practice in our institutions that we want to build on. We've added that point of the LinkedIn claim, and we're deliberately saying claim, that individuals are able to add digital badges to those profiles. They're able to add, and the scenario that you will have seen already, or if you haven't seen, we can send it to you, the scenario we've developed demonstrates that that is possible. We also know that employers increasingly are accessing social media to look for potential applicants for their organisations, and indeed as part of their own social media campaigns. We had a meeting at AberTay a little while back which demonstrated two things. One is employer interest in this area because we had employers contributing. And the second is that most of us in the room didn't understand the jargon of social media, and I include myself in that. And finally, our understanding, and if your understanding is different, you've got a different perspective on that last point in bold, it would be good to know, that nevertheless, despite all of that, student and graduate use of HERE data is still low. Students are struggling, or certainly not being able to, or choosing to, could be either, but sharing the data they've got in their HERE with potential employers. And this is one of the actions that we're recognising and we want to do something about. So, Kath, if we can move on to the third slide, that would be great. Okay, so what are we trying to do with this piece of work? What we're trying to do is to build student engagement and connect that to potentially employer engagement. We'd like you to work with us to move this process forward in terms of helping students, a group of students, a small group of students in your institution, to make use of HERE data in building their LinkedIn profiles. If we can do that, ultimately in sufficient numbers, employers will come across the HERE in much more naturalistic surroundings. They will learn about it because they're actually accessing LinkedIn profiles themselves. And in terms of helping students build this use of the digital badge as a medium for accessing HERE data and putting into LinkedIn profiles, we want you to have a go at it, and we want you to tell us whether it works or not. So it is, as I said, a piece of action research, and we want to know what we can learn from it. So today we're going to do 4 things. We're going to say a little bit, Ruth will talk a bit about this later, to identify what we're asking you to do in being participants. There are no lurkers in this group, we want you to be participants. We're going to provide a run through of the detail of the scenario. We're going to give you lots of time for questions, and please, colleagues, if you've got questions or issues or points you want to make as we go along, please jot them down in the chat box that we will be monitoring as we go along. And then we want to talk about ongoing support for this work, because it's not a question of us saying, please get on and do it and tell us how you get on. We're aware that for many people, you don't see yourselves as indeed I don't, specialists in badges. You don't see yourselves as specialists in LinkedIn or social media use, but there will be people in your institutions, I suspect, who are, and therefore it's about building little teams of expertise and working collaboratively. Ian's asked the question, which we'll maybe be able to say a bit about in a minute, so thank you, Ian. Please, folks, do put the questions in the box, and we'll pick those up as we go along. Thanks, Ian, for the first one. And with that, I'm going to hand on to Gronya, who'll talk a little bit about the digital badge context, and she will hand on to Ruth to talk about the work we're kicking off today. So, Gronya, over to you, and thank you for your contribution in advance.
Thanks, Rob. Digital Me have been working in the area of digital credentials really since the concept first came about with the Open Badges infrastructure standard development that commenced in sort of 2010, 2011. And over that period of time since then, we've been investigating and exploring the opportunities that digital credentials and having a way of capturing and sharing achievements online would present. And we know that there are opportunities right across the spectrum for education, for employers, for the voluntary sector, for government in using digital credentials, and we have worked with people from each of those sectors. I think the main thing that we feel about digital credentials, having done some work over the past year or so, really exploring the opportunities that these present to the different stakeholders that might engage with badges. So those would be the earners of badges, the issuers of badges, and also the consumers of badges. We believe that credentials really allow us to see the bigger picture of a person. They allow us to gather together and the individual user to gather together recognition that they've gained for achievements in various different contexts. So be that in formal education, informal education, while pursuing hobbies, etc. And we know that employers are increasingly demanding a richer picture and a more granular picture, I think, of people's skills. We know that some employers, for example, are even no longer accepting a degree in the recruitment process. They want to have a more granular sense of what someone's able to do. And digital credentials really allow us to do that. If we could move on to the next slide, please, Kath. Thank you. So just in terms of a brief overview of what a digital credential allows us to capture, we have the name, a description of what the credential represents, and the criteria for what goes into the credential, what someone's had to do to be awarded it, who the issuer is, and evidence. So we can link to online evidence, be that a URL to a website, to a blog post, to research papers, a video, podcast, etc. We can also specify the date the credential was issued, standards it aligns to, tags for easy discovery, etc. So we can see that it's a much richer, it has the potential to provide a much richer picture of what someone has done to gain recognition for a particular skill or competency than, say, just a piece of paper, which we can't interrogate, we can't look at the evidence behind that. So that's a brief overview of what can be contained within a credential. And if we look at thinking that has happened around the HERE over recent times, Rob has included here a picture, excuse me, where we see that the HERE allows us to hear the whole story. So there are perhaps some synergies there between what the HERE has been looking to achieve and to present, and also what digital credentials look to achieve and to present about a person as well. They're all about presenting that bigger picture and richer picture of someone's abilities. So I believe there has been some exploration of the use of digital badges within the HERE by Redshaw Boxwell, for example. And the thinking that Rob and Ruth have described to me as being behind this work that you're all engaging in at the moment is to see if the HERE itself could be captured and shared within the context of an open badge, so a digital credential, and how that might work. So in terms of access to the HERE, that's the earner, the user has control over that at all times, just as they have control over the badges or credentials they've been awarded. And in similar ways between credentials, as with credentials, the student isn't able to change any of the content within that, which is also similar to how digital credentials work. So there certainly seem to be some synergy and some opportunities for linking these two things together, the HERE and digital credentials. If I could pass over to Ruth now. I think she's going to present the scenario.
Hi, sorry, yeah, I'm just getting the right screen back. So, what we've been doing then is thinking about how the HERE could evolve on from, so it's moved from a paper document to a digital document, but we believe most people are using it in PDF form. So it's, as we've described, about how to make that more accessible, because a lot more transactions are being done online, and so as part of that, recruitment is being done a lot more online and across various different locations. So in order to speed up the process, people often want to get hold of verifiable qualification information digitally. And so that's the main sort of thrust behind what we're trying to achieve here, is allowing students to securely share information about their credentials across the internet and different online systems. So what we would like from you, as Rob said, is to think through whether in your institutions you have students that already have LinkedIn profiles. And from my sort of experience today, it's usually a lot of business students, so those kind of courses would have students that maybe have more interest in LinkedIn and have their CVs up there, but it would be really great if there were other subject areas that were also interested in this, maybe computer science or ones that are sort of more familiar with digital and looking for this extra functionality. So to see which students you have that have LinkedIn, as I've said, most institutions are creating their here in an online format, but it might be something like a PDF. So just to double check that you are producing some sort of online format for your here. Then then think through how this document can be accessible to your students online. Then would you be willing to run this sort of little project? And we hope that it won't take too much of your time, but it will take a bit of resource just to check that you've got all these things in place. And then, is there somebody within your institution that is already producing digital badges? I've been working with a group of universities that are keen to promote digital badges, and those people within the organisations tend to be learning technologists. So we've got a list of different universities that we believe are doing things in with open badges, but we know that it's sometimes difficult for people within an institution to link up and understand what each other's doing. So if you can't find anybody within your institution that is issuing open badges, then please do, but you're keen to get involved, please get in touch with us, and then we can see if we know anybody in your institution that is actively issuing badges or has got the sort of technical support that you might require. So once you've done that sort of checklist to see how ready your institution is to be able to take part in this, as Rob's called it, action research, then to identify individual students within those different subject areas that might be interested to take part, check that they've got a LinkedIn profile. You might want to involve maybe people in your careers departments that might be doing actively supporting students with this. And then check those students that want to take part, what sort of status their here data is in. Because again, we're aware that institutions could be providing a snapshot here that students can have access to during their period of studies, whereas others are waiting until after graduation before they can get access to it. But we hope that your institutions are allowing students to work with their HEREs in a formative process as well as summative after graduation. Then once you've checked that your institution can do all these activities and you've got students that are willing to work with you, then it's about joining them up. So next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So our scenario then. What we want to be able to do is create a badge that might be displaying your institutional crest, and it should also have room to include the HERE logo, and that's just so that the student can display this within their LinkedIn profile, so that anybody that clicked on it, that when anybody that sees it would understand what it is, and then they can click on it in order to get the evidence below it. So the visual is just to display what it is, and then, as Rob said, the URL within the once you've clicked on it, then would go off to the process that you might have underneath it about getting the verification to be able to go and actually see the HERE. But that has to go through a secure process. And we're aware some of you might be using third-party organisations like GradIntel or Digitary that could be offering a service behind it. So if you are, then we'd be delighted if you wanted to work with those third parties as well, because we know they're aware of the activity that we're doing here, and would like to support anybody that's interested. So has anybody got any questions about the scenario?
Just to say that one or two people are new to this meeting. I'm thinking, Debbie, you may not have seen the scenario. We will recirculate that immediately after this meeting to those who we think it will be new information for.
So does that scenario make sense to people? Is this, as Rob said, it might all be very new to all of you, or some of you. Is this, do you think this sort of thing sounds of interest? Do you think students are wanting to share their qualification information securely online? Hi, Simon. So have any of you maybe talked to careers people, or have heard anything about careers wanting to look at how to provide different information in their online CVs?
Hello, it's Ian here. I don't know, can you hear me? Can you hear me, yeah?
You can, Ian, yeah, thanks.
No. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, we've actually got a HEREable award that revolves around creating a LinkedIn profile that our career service have developed this year. So I think we've definitely got a group of students, a small group this year, because we were piloting it this year, who are interested in this and who are developing LinkedIn profiles as their students, and who will, you know, express an interest in using it in terms of supporting their employability activities. So I think all of that, the scenario sounds completely plausible, realistic, and I would imagine that we could get a small group of students to work with that.
That would be fantastic. Just colleagues, just to note, and Ian raised the issue earlier on about, you know, usage of the social media and so on. I put one or two links in which are institutional links for Edinburgh, for Durham, and there's a presentation which I'll circulate later on, or circulate the link to, which was delivered by Robert Gelb, who was then at Edinburgh, about helping students to develop their LinkedIn presence. And all of those tend to come from careers context, as Ian was just saying there, in terms of interest, and they're quite heavily focused on progression and clearly upon facilitating employability or the visibility of the employable characteristics of graduates, which is I think very much what we're interested in. And I see there's been an exchange with Debbie and Gronya about the clunkiness of LinkedIn and badges, so hopefully we can work our way around that. And if necessary, we can talk to colleagues at LinkedIn about issues that come up and try and ensure that we can facilitate change if change is needed.
Yes, okay. I think just building on that, we have talked to colleagues at LinkedIn about this over the years, and I think it was waiting for the time to be a bit brighter, a bit better. So I think you know, a few years down the road it will become much more popular, and it quite quickly. I mean, LinkedIn have said before when we've talked to them that any changes they make need to be applicable to any of their customers, not just UK customers, and so that's why they weren't keen to do anything that was specific to the here, but and that's where we came up with the idea of putting it in an open badge rather than kind of exposing more of the here data directly into a LinkedIn profile. So that's where we're just trying to sort of test out the technologies that are available, like the open badge and its standard, and with organisations like LinkedIn that have got critical mass there, but obviously there are other forums to share your qualifications on online. So it's not that we wouldn't explore other platforms in the near future, but it's just, you know, as Rob has said, that this is just about a proof of concept and just trying to get a bit of traction in understanding what are the challenges. And you know, we appreciate there's, you know, social, procedural, internal, institutional issues as well as technical ones. So that's why we're keen to collaborate with organisations like CRA and Digital Me that are experts in the technology. So has any of the other institutions got any comments about why they might be interested in looking into helping students share their qualifications securely online? Is it tying into strategic agendas, or is it just you think it sounds like it's an interesting idea? So I hope people can talk. I can see some people.
Just wondering if I can add a little sort of prompt here, if that's okay.
Yep. So Simon from, sorry, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yes, Simon Grant from CETIS. We've been working with Ruth and Rob for many years on this sort of thing, on the technical side and interoperability side, and and I've got a long-term interest in e-portfolios and badges. That's okay.
Yep.
Basically, just introducing some of the ideas from last time this came around to me a year or two ago, which might help prompt other people to speak, in the sense that one of the things that I got from other people interested in the here and badges was that they were interested in the idea of badges more specifically to display the extracurricular or co-curricular stuff rather than the actual mainstream curricular stuff. And we were kind of exploring with a number of people whether there was a potential, maybe more potential, to see those things together rather than just as, you know, to display the actual academic stuff through through LinkedIn or whatever platform it is, rather than just the more or as well as the more kind of widely recognized need for displaying employability skills, other experience, all the kind of university award stuff, which is already, my understanding, has been more prevalent over the last year or two.
Yes, we have seen a lot more case studies in America of using online credentials and micro-credentialing. And I think the IMS conference a few weeks ago had some very strong and exciting cases from colleges and different types of universities across the US that were doing this kind of activity. And some of it is in the curriculum, as well as Simon's talked about, the extracurricular. So, and there has been a gain on Learning Technologists GISMAIL forum. Somebody was asking about, are people using open badge technologies within the curriculum? So I think there is a growing interest in some institutions in how to use badges within the curriculum as well as extracurricular and CPD volunteering activities. And I think the interesting aspect of all of this is to remember that it's about verifying the credentials. And so that's where hopefully that helps with some of the recruitment in terms of the information shared in the CV is verified. So it's not just the student self-asserting or self-declaring what they've done, so that there can be better, quicker matching going on.
Yeah, I guess it's important to recognise what we can and can't do. Just conscious that Debbie's asked a question about visibility of badges, and I don't know whether, Gráinne, you've picked that up and there's anything we can just either note about that or whether there's a workaround for it. Debbie, I don't know whether you can speak to us directly about that, or I know, Gráinne, you can obviously do that, but whether you're able to say more than you've said in the chat. Silence will be taken as a thought that you can't, but Gráinne, you may just want to say a bit about the visibility question and whether there's any way of working with that. Ah. Maybe we've not got sound from you just yet. Still no, no.
So Debbie, we can see you talking.
And waving.
And waving.
And liking the pink wall behind you.
You've got to unmute. You've got to unmute yourself using the button to unmute yourself. At least on my system.
Debbie's unmuted on mine. Oh, she's gone on. We should hear from you now. So if it's not working, then there's an issue somewhere, which we probably won't be able to sort in the time we've got.
Hello. Can
Great.
you hear me yet? Yay!
Yay.
It's obviously took a while to warm up.
Yeah, and welcome from Swansea, and give my best wishes to Hugh, who and you were the most recent recruit. I think we knew you were joining us about 10 minutes before the call.
Yeah, and me.
Okay.
Mine was about 2 minutes before the call.
Okay.
Hi everybody, I'm Debbie Bath from Swansea University. Yes, obviously Hugh sent me an email to tell me this was happening because I've got an interest in, I work for SALT, which is the Swansea Academy of Learning and Teaching. So I'm actually working with Gráinne, looking at open digital badges from a staff perspective. And I did have a conversation with Hugh not so long ago about potentially looking at the HERE and things like that. So that's why I've come to kind of listen to find out what was going on about this, really. The reason I mentioned about the visibility is I shared my LinkedIn profile because I'm an earner of badges as well as an issuer of badges. And if you have a look on that, I think what I'm trying to say is that it shows up under certifications, but it just goes as a text link, and really we want to be shouting about it and having that image much more visible on the LinkedIn profile itself. And the only way that I've found to do it is a workaround, in which case I'm putting it in certain sections on the LinkedIn profile. So I just wanted to flag it up, really. It could just be me and something I'm doing wrong.
That's exactly what we were finding last year, by the way, Debbie. So you're not alone.
It's not me.
No.
Yeah, no, it's not you, Debbie.
Okay.
Yeah, we would certainly agree that we've been having discussions with LinkedIn for a number of years, and I think there certainly are improvements could come about there. What you've done, Debbie, with finding a workaround, I think that's what I've also done, is I've used a summary field, for example, just to put in a link to my badge profile page on whatever system it is. So whether it's whether it's the Mozilla Backpack or others. So that's perhaps one workaround. The certifications, some people may just like to have them in there. Some systems will also be able to allow you to share directly to your feed. That is just a sort of immediate and temporary visibility, I guess, because once your feed refreshes, then it's going to sort of disappear. So I think it would be good to continue the discussions with LinkedIn to see how they could be presented perhaps in a more user-friendly way. But other things that we are looking at is more generally how digital credentials can be presented and used within recruitment. So for example, just to give one example, IBM issued around 300,000 badges last year internally and to their sort of wider stakeholder community. And are I suppose have developed their own internal processes for using credentials. So what we're seeing is that employers and organisations are perhaps finding their own ways as well to engage with credentials. So while LinkedIn provides one route, perhaps we also need to be looking at other routes for the future as well as to how we make credentials more easily usable within recruitment.
Can I just come back to a point that was made earlier around the badging of things within the curriculum as well as extracurricular, and I think it's something I'm sure a number of universities are moving this way now. It's something we're certainly looking at the University of West of England, UE. We are currently revamping and revitalising what our employability award to think more broadly about it, and it will be acknowledging curricular as well as extracurricular activities, and so therefore the badging of those, whether digital or not, is going to be quite key. I think as we're going to be piloting this over the coming year, it might be an opportunity to start thinking about how we could pilot the digital badges approach. So I certainly can't speak on behalf of our sort of employability awards team at the moment, but I can certainly put it to them as an option. One thing we're also looking at is broader accreditation from different organisations, and it may be that again there might be some opportunities of going beyond the badging of just our university crest and here to our university crest here and affiliated organisations. So we could also look at that.
That would be nice too, because one of the things we've discovered, certainly talking to universities about the here, is on some programs professional recognition is as important as module marks, if not more important.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much.
So it's something, I mean, we'll keep in touch about it. Obviously I'll have to go and talk to the broader team about this, but there may be some opportunities there.
That'll be great.
Just to come back as well.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to go, just to let people know, sorry, that was a very short contribution. I'm going to have to go because I've got to head over to another campus now for another meeting, so I do apologise. Goodbye, and that's been really interesting.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Well, just to come back on that point as well about affiliation, that's something that's being built into the next version of the Open Badge Infrastructure Standard 2.0, so that ability to recognise or endorse a credential by another or a third party. So some systems already enable that, but it's actually been built into the standard itself from now, essentially from a week ago or so. So that should make that process a bit easier. Can I just make a point for perhaps for consideration with the scenario, Ruth?
Yes,
so
please do, Gloria. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. So just it relates to the visibility of evidence. So one of the things that you're looking for here is to raise the visibility and I suppose use of HERE data. So something to just consider with the systems that you're using as well is whether the evidence, if you're going to have evidence, and the scenario here is that you would have a link to the HERE URL for that individual student. Some systems will lock that evidence away behind an account, so you would have to think about how you give the potential consumer, whether it's an employer, for example, access to that evidence, and how you would provide that account access. So that's just something to think about, and again, different systems will approach that in different ways. So some make the evidence very openly available, and some will lock that behind an account. So that's a consideration.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for that, Gráinne, because I think it's those kind of barriers that we need to sort of be aware of and think through and how to solve, because we did do a proof of concept with Simon and ourselves a while ago, and it was just trying to make that scenario a bit more realistic was one of the hopes behind getting universities to try and repeat that. So Simon, I don't know if you want to just say quickly about the sort of challenges of what you went through and how we hope we can help institutions overcome that, or at least get enough evidence to work with different organisations to come out to overcome those challenges.
I'll just say a little bit from my recollection, because I haven't sort of gone into it very much, but recently. But as Debbie was saying, and I think we recognise that a year or so ago, LinkedIn made it slightly more difficult to share the badge images directly, but I think there was this idea. I seem to recall, although we didn't pursue, I don't remember pursuing this personally, but I do seem to recall that if a university has an account with LinkedIn, they can do something along those lines, and that might well be able to show a graphic up front, which you can then click on, which obviously is what people really want when they see the, in order to make the HERE visible. I don't recall. Is there anything else that you can remember, Ruth, which I may have forgotten myself?
No, I think that just to be sort of mindful that we know that it might not be 100% straight plain sailing at the moment, and that's why we want to do this sort of second phase of the proof of concept, really, is to really get a better understanding of the challenges institutions have, and if there were ones that are using GradIntel, is that easier, and what are the opportunities it offers to do it with those kind of third parties, or is it more challenging because the evidence, as Gráinne said, might be behind different firewalls and things like that?
Yes, I'm not really sure what the issues are with that. I mean, obviously, to have something directly on LinkedIn, which you can simply click through, I think that was a problem with GradIntel, because, or other such providers, because part of their business model, in my understanding, was to capture information from people who are accessing the information and being able to also to be able to slice it up in a way which they find more helpful, perhaps particularly to provide particular evidence from within a HERE. So my recollection is that they weren't they weren't over enthusiastic about a very general sort of everybody can link to my HERE through their system. But what I'm not sure, I don't recall, is whether there would be a workaround, which obviously we'd have to negotiate with them, by which if you click on the Here logo, you could land on their page, which you can then have to, like log in on or whatever it is, or maybe you have maybe you're recognised as having a cookie or something which you're already logging in, and then go directly through their system as they do at the moment. So that's all I recall from how it was discussed last year.
Yeah, so Debbie, I don't know if you've got any comments on that, or whether you'd be interested to work with GradIntel in this pilot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the difficulty personally that I've got at the moment is, obviously I'm very staff facing. It's just that I happen to have the interest in Open Digital Badges. I can certainly see that it's got, lots of legs in terms of student application and looking at things like that for here. Now, as far as the institution is concerned, I know it's something that they are interested in, but I don't know the detail of how far down the line that's got. But I can certainly take it up with Hugh after this and find out and just see. But yeah, GradIntel does ring a bell, but I'm not student facing here. I was in my previous job, but not here. So I'm not sure. I'll double check and see.
If it's any help, Debbie, I think Gary is lurking somewhere as well. Well, he was a minute ago. Yes, Gary Jones is somewhere keeping quiet, but he's on the phone, I think, according to my screen anyway. Ruth, we're going to run out of time in a minute or two. Do you want to move on to the slide and then the final slide? Is that all right?
Yeah.
I think we're saying you're agreeing with us that this is a work in progress, and in a sense, I think the first aeroplane image fits quite nicely actually, and that's both challenging, but it's also quite exciting, just for me anyway. Sorry, Ruth.
Yes, no, I totally agree. So if you move on to the next slide, sorry, after the next step.
Yep.
So what we were hoping would happen after today is that you could sign up to the JISC mail that we're about to set up, called Here Open Badges, Open Credentials.
Yeah, digital badges, I think we're going to call it, but
digital badges.
We'll settle on that, and that will be a closed group for people that want to do stuff. Don't be offended if we say we don't want lurkers, we want workers, because we're wanting to, as this slide says, I'll shut up in a minute, Ruth, we're wanting to, as we've said throughout, we want to ask people to do bits, but report on all of that stuff, achievements, problems, complexities and disasters, because that's the only way we're going to learn stuff, and that's really quite important. And we'll support through the JISC mail list, but there'll also be other opportunities. Ruth, if I hand back to you, do you want to just finish that off?
Yeah, so that's sort of the main mode of communication between now and September. So we hope that we could have a sort of follow-on webinar similar to this on the September the 14th, again at lunchtime, where we can just report back on progress. And we hope to be able to get some good findings together by then, because JISC is working with the Open University and IMS, which is the standards bodies that own the Open Badge standard, and Digital Me, to convene a summit in London towards late October. We're just still deciding the date, because there's quite a few other Open Badge events going on, so that we hope we'll have lots of European and maybe international colleagues coming over to London at that time, so they might be able to combine a few conferences. And this is the purpose of that summit, is really to talk a bit more about the technologies that are being used to help students and others share digital credentials securely. But the discussions today about having keynotes, having it recorded, having it talk about much more use case and evidence, because often when people begin to get interested in technology or a new way of doing something, they want to have evidence of demand and the benefits for the different stakeholders and a better understanding of who's doing what. So I think there are good use cases and case studies maybe from more international rather than just in the UK, but we have got some evidence and information that we can help share during that summit. And so we would be keen for this pilot to be represented somehow during that summit. So are there any other quick questions or information that any of you attending now would like to have from us? So you're clear what will happen. So Rob will email around the recording to the event to all of the group so that people that haven't been able to join us today can at least hear what we're intending to do. Have a list of activities that we'd like to do and sort of dates by when we hope people will be able to achieve this by, and then the next steps. And as we've said, please do use the JISC mail to have conversations and discussions as we go through the next few months until September.
And also to raise questions that might need some multiplicity of approaches, and I'm thinking the approach to LinkedIn, those sorts of things, and also possibly approach to some of the third-party providers of HERE systems. Though bear in mind, it seems to me in those worlds we are the customer, so we should have a degree of saying what goes on. I will also circulate two other links, if that's appropriate, in addition to this link, which might be of interest. One is the presentation that Robert Gelb gave at Edinburgh. He was very student-facing in his work with helping students make the most of their social media presence. And I'll also circulate a link to a webinar we held with US colleagues, if you haven't seen that, in this territory, because while the HERE is a UK title, the agenda, which is enabling institutions to support more fully and in more detailed ways the range of achievements in their students, is an international agenda now. And we have American colleagues working on this with whom we're in contact, and it might be of interest if you have a spare half hour in your holidays to have a listen. I was going to say, what comes next? Beyond today, holidays. Ian's shaking his head there. They don't have holidays in Scotland, quite right too. And I think this will work best if we all have a go at it. Sorry about Debbie organising a conference next week. I think this gives us an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to get ahead of the curve, to learn from each other, to test out whether this is doable and actually whether it's desirable. And both of those are testable questions, I think. The only thing I think we do know is that students will build profiles, employers will use digital profiles, sharing of information is increasingly a digital context for that, and if we end up simply issuing HEREs in a PDF format or on paper, we'll be well rooted in the 20th century, which was not altogether bad, certainly the second half of it, but it isn't actually where we are. So thank you for joining. We will write to people who are in the group but haven't been able to make the call. We will send the same stuff to everyone, and we'll sign everybody up to the JISC list too. Particular thanks to Gronya, who didn't know about this time last week, and it's brilliant that she's been able to join us and add her visibility, and obviously working with some of you already. To all of you, to Joe, who's joined from the west of Scotland alongside Ian, but is also on the HERE advisory group, so has a link to that community, and we'll be able to report back on the achievements, successes, problems, complexities and disasters.
And thanks to Simon for his earlier work that's led on to this, much appreciated, and to you too, Rob, because I think you're very instrumental in driving this agenda and making sure it doesn't slip off people's radars, so thank you for that.
No worries, and I'm the least technical person, so folks, you're going to have to put me right to go along.
You're too modest.
Doesn't need confidence. Okay, thank you everyone. The recording will be with you as soon as we can manage it, as will the other links, and really look forward to working with you on this, and I'm even more excited than I was an hour ago.